Hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome to the Simhanger. My name's Mark. We'll get started straight after this video sponsor's message.
3383 Uniform Montgomery, clearance clear to the Palomar Airport. Port after departure, flighting 280. Expect radar back.
When you're ready to take the next step towards realism with tactile feedback, and you're looking for the most realistic navigational device, either as part of a cockpit build or standalone, then look to Flight Sim Builder, who have a range of very competitively priced products. Their quality-built units are replicas of the real thing, and I can personally attest to them. And why? Well, I use them myself. New from Flight Sim Builder is their Steam Gauges panel. Are you ready to take the next step towards ultimate immersion? Want to know more? Visit Flight Sim Builder direct or check out my review videos, link in the notes below. During the configuration process, we'll want to change aircraft, which you can't do once you've spawned into an airport. So, either from the main home page, or alternatively you can select free flight but don't spawn into an airport. We're going to head to the top right hand corner and select the tools or cog icon, give that a click. We're now in the settings menu and we're going to choose the controls tab. We're now in our configurator. First things first, select the keyboard as the active peripheral and make sure under General Controls, it is set to Keyboard 2024 Transversal. This will make editing a little bit easier. Once you've done that, select the Bravo Throttle Quadrant as the active peripheral. The Bravo Throttle Quadrant has a number of default profiles, helicopters, GA and so on. The default profile shown will depend on the aircraft selected. As we're focusing in this video on the props, and the default profile is a twin engine, I recommend that you select the Textron Aviation Beechcraft Baron G58. Select Change Aircraft, choose the G58, and we're ready to go. Make sure your Bravo Throttle Quadrant is set up to reflect the default twin prop profile with throttle 1 and 2, prop 1 and 2, and mixture 1 and 2. If you're not familiar with the controls interface and the various options, please check out this video before continuing. It'll bring you up to speed. You'll find it easier to follow this tutorial. The default profile includes all the standard mappings for gear up and down, all the functionality for the autopilot, flap lever, throttle prop and mixtures, as well as the trim wheel. Just note that the trim wheel function is a button press and not an axis. To save ourselves time, we will be building one profile on top of the other, as many of the bindings will be common and we won't have to remap those. The profile changes will affect the 6 axes predominantly, everything else left at default, so it's pretty important right at the beginning before we start, as we'll be duplicating one profile with the next, that you configure your buttons first, as whatever they're set to now will be carried forward into future configs. These are the default bindings, and most of them are set as on and off, with the switches in the current position generally is off, and then pushed forward is on. We have door lights plus a number of other functions, spoilers on and off, anti-ice, pitot, APU, parking brake on and off, and auto start and auto stop. You should configure these as whatever suits your style and type of flying. Just for interest purposes, these are mine. Parking brake, panel lights and cabin lights, anti-ice, windshield heat, a spare one, and I have a spare because I will configure this for aircraft, for example, that have a water rudder and so on, perhaps smoke on and off depending on the particular aircraft, and auto start and auto stop. Still on the default profile, if we change the filter to assigned, we can see everything that's assigned within the default profile. We can also search by input. We see in the search box it's scanning. I've moved the trim wheel forward and it shows that it's mapped to elevator trim down. Reset the scan box or search box by clicking on this icon here. Let's stay with the switches for now. With our filter still on assigned, we can click on the box search by input to find out whatever action is assigned to a various axis or switch and so on. I'm going to press switch number 1. An important point here, you need to switch into the position and back out again for these switches to read, as they are two-way switches with different button numbers assigned to both on and off. So for button 1, on position, we can see what's assigned. In this case, depending on which aircraft you're flying, 3 different actions are assigned. But we want to set up our buttons first so we can delete these. And as shown earlier, I want to allocate switch number 1 to my parking brake on and off. Earlier on I said set your keyboard to the 2024 transversal, and the reason I said this, if you look in the lower left hand corner, in addition to the filter assigned and go back option, there's also the unbind, which is the backspace key. This makes deleting current mappings or bindings quick and simple. So I don't want G limiter on, so I'm going to hit the backspace key. Note here I'm just moving my mouse over to highlight the action. I'm not clicking in the box. Move the mouse over to highlight it only. That's changing the default profile and that can't be overwritten, so it automatically asks me to create a new profile. I could have also done this before making any changes by selecting the cog or tool icon next to the Bravo Throttle Quadrant profile and selecting duplicate, and we'll be doing that a little bit later. I'm going to call the new profile Twin Prop. I'm going to select OK, and now you'll be able to see that the new active profile is Twin Prop, so any future changes we make will be to the Twin Prop profile. I don't want lead pole on and I don't want the door lights, so once again I'm going to highlight them and hit backspace. And they're gone. As these are two-way switches, if I search by input and now move the switch into and out of the off position, remember they're two-way switches, we can see other things are assigned, so once again I'm going to delete these. I'm showing you this as it can be a bit confusing to configure the switches initially till you get the hang of it. Switch number 1 is now unallocated, and I can now reassign it. Changing my filter to none, I'm going to type in parking as I'm looking for parking brake, and everything related to parking is now displayed. Now here's another tip that can save you time. I could set the switch one way to be on and the other way to be off. You can see parking brake on and off above, or alternatively I can use set parking brake. This means when the switch is active, the parking brake is on, and when it's not, it's off. It's a single bind. So if you have the option, always try set first before on and off, if it is an available option. For me, it worked on all the bindings where it was available with the exception of windshield de-ice that I had to set to on and off. But the choice is yours. So to bind set parking brake, I'm going to click in the box, it starts scanning. I'm going to move the switch into the position and back out again, and it records as joystick button 3-4. Parking brake on and off is allocated to a different switch, but I'm going to just delete those by hitting the backspace. And now I can go ahead and set up the rest of my switches. And once that's done, we're ready to set up our multiple different configurations. If you're a little unsure, the easiest way, checking the switch in both positions, both on and off, is delete all the assignments and then reassign. Or, as I did, you can do it as you go. We're almost done now with our twin prop profile. Just one more thing I'd like to add. Based on my experience with the previous sim, with your filter on none, I'm going up to the search function and I'm going to type in throttle. This will bring up a list of all things related to the throttle. And what I'm looking for is throttle 1 cut. There it is. And the reason I'm going to use this is sometimes when you come out of full reverse, back to idle in the sim, the throttle has a tendency to jump forward, particularly with third-party aircraft. The cut command brings it back to idle. So for throttle number 1, I'm going to select throttle 1 cut, scan in the box, and move the throttle 1 into the detent and back out again. So I now have throttle 1 decrease and throttle 1 cut assigned to the same action, the detent. Next to throttle 1 cut, I'm going to select the tools icon. And I'm going to set the action throttle 1 cut to set control on release. The detent is a button, so it will move the throttle to cut when I come out of detent and keep the throttle in the idle position. One thing that's good to know is that the other action throttle 1 decrease is also shown here. If you click on it, you can select it and edit it. Quite a handy feature. We're done here. Let's go back and let's do throttle 2 cut. Follow exactly the same process. Click in the box to scan. Move throttle 2 into and out of the detent. Then select the tools icon. You know exactly what we're going to do now. We're going to select Set Control on Release. We'll activate that. Select Go Back. Our configuration for the twin prop is now complete. Select Save and Back to save the profile. If you don't, it won't save it. It's a bug. It's now saved, so we can head back to the Controls menu. Our next profile is going to be a single prop advanced. I call it advanced because it has throttle, prop and mixture. And our first course of action is to change aircraft to ensure we get profile following. And I recommend that you select the Beechcraft Bonanza G36. Don't select a turboprop, that's a different profile. Okay, so our aircraft is now active. Let's go ahead and create the profile. And I'm going to go ahead and duplicate the twin prop profile. Click on the tools icon and then from the menu select duplicate. It's a new profile, so we need to give it a name. Now I'm going to call it Single Prop Advanced. You can call it anything you like. That's done. And we're now ready to start modifying our profile. But first, let's set up our Bravo Throttle Quadrant. We are in effect removing Engine 2. So we can get rid of Throttle 2, Prop 2 and Mixture 2. You could of course just leave the profile as it is and use your levers in this position. The wider gap between handles is quite handy, especially if you fly in VR. But today we'll stick with the traditional setup. We'll move the prop to axis 2 and the mixture to axis 3. Those not being used will just be pushed out the way. We need to delete Engine 2, so with Filter on assigned, up to the search box and type in throttle. And we're now going to go ahead and delete anything that is throttle 2 related. So here we have throttle 2 decrease. We can delete that by pressing the backspace. We're going to do exactly the same for throttle 2 cut and throttle 2 axis. Next is our prop, so in the search box let's type in propeller. And once again we'll be looking to delete propeller 2 axis. There it is. We'll highlight it and give it the backspace treatment and it's gone. If it doesn't highlight, just click on the action name. We now need to reassign the axis. As we move the prop lever from the third lever to the second lever, click in the box to scan and move the lever through its range of movement but not into the detent. There was also a feather command for the prop, which doesn't work properly by the way. In the search box we'll type in feather. Then go ahead and delete toggle feather switch 2. And for toggle feather switch 1, we need to assign it to the new lever position. So once again, we will click in the box, move the prop lever into and out of detent. The new button command is assigned, and that's our prop done. So back up to the search box, and this time we're going to type in mixture. Remember, our filter is still on assigned, and delete mixture 2 axis. And decrease mixture 2. And then we're going to have to reassign the lever position. It was in lever position 5. It's now in the third slot. So we're going to click in the box, scan, move it through its range. And we're also going to have to reassign decrease mixture 1 into the detent. Move the lever into and out of detent. And we're done. We didn't reassign throttle 1 as its position hadn't moved. Now importantly, go back to the main menu to make sure that it saves, and then head back to the controls menu. And we're going to set up our next profile, which is single prop basic, as it doesn't have a prop. It's just got throttle and mixture. This one's fairly quick and straightforward. First of all, let's select our aircraft. So let's choose change aircraft. To find an aircraft quickly, we can just use the search box. I'm going to type in Cessna. As I'm looking for the default Cessna 172 Skyhawk, there it is. Selected, save and back. When changing profiles, remember always choose your aircraft first. It's come up with the default profile, we don't want that, so I'm going to choose single advanced. And whilst we're here and we've got the menu up, let me explain to the best of my knowledge how profile following works. Subject to you choosing your aircraft first, it will always try and match similar aircraft to the same profile. This is done automatically. If on the other hand you've just created multiple profiles and not changed aircraft, well, it won't follow. And towards the end of this video, I'll give you an example and show you the profile following. And it doesn't always get it right. If you've developed a particular profile for an aircraft and by default it's not following that, it's only then that you would apply Set as Default, and that default applies to that aircraft. If on the other hand you choose Apply to all aircraft, well, you are overwriting the profile following completely, and it will apply that to all aircraft. Personally, I avoid Apply to all aircraft. I hope that makes sense. Using the single advanced profile, I'm going to create a duplicate, and I'm going to call this Single Prop Basic. There we are. Select OK, and we're ready to start. And first things first, let's make sure that our Bravo Throttle Quadrant is correctly configured. The Skyhawk doesn't have a prop, so we're going to remove the prop lever and move the mixture lever over 1 to where the prop lever was. So we've now got throttle in 1 and mixture in 2. With your filter on assigned, up to the search box, and we're going to type in prop as we want to delete that axis and actions completely. Propeller 1 axis, there it is, let's delete that. Remember, there was also a feather command, so let's look for that. We're going to type in feather. We're looking for toggle feather switch 1, and we're once again going to delete that. That's gone, and back up again to the search box, and we're going to type in mixture. As we move the mixture from axis 3 to 2, we need to reassign it. For the axis, click in the box, move the lever through the full range. The new axis is recorded, and now decrease mixture 1. Move the handle into and out of the detent, and we're done. Remember, go back and save and back to make sure it holds on to that profile, then back to the controls menu. Next up, we need a profile for a turboprop, something like the Cessna Caravan. So once again, we're going to change aircraft. Let's find the Cessna 208B Caravan. There it is, so we will select that. Save and back, and returns to the control menu. Once again, we're going to duplicate, and in this instance we're going to duplicate the single advanced profile. As the Caravan is a turboprop but single engine. Give the profile a name as before. I'm going to call mine Single Turboprop. And now we're ready to start making our changes to make this profile compatible with a turboprop. Up to the search box again, and this time I'm going to type in throttle with my filter on none. And if you're looking for a lot of logic in this profile, well, you may struggle to find it, but this is what's worked for me at the moment. First off, let's find hold throttle reverse thrust. Follow the same format as before, click in the box. My throttle is on axis 1, I'm going to move it into the detent and back out again. The next one we're looking for is an odd one, it's throttle previous detent. You'll need to scroll a fair distance down, and we need this to make the throttle go into reverse. The standard config doesn't work. So once again, check the box, and once again I'm going to move the throttle into and out of the detent. So we've now got 3 actions assigned: throttle decrease, hold throttle reverse, and throttle cut. But throttle cut is on release, so we should be okay. That's our throttle done. Now for our prop. I've experimented with various things, but ultimately I've reverted back to what worked for me in Microsoft 2020. Despite there being some specific commands for this actions, I just couldn't seem to find the right combo. If you've got a better way of getting the prop into the feather position, please let me know in the comments below. What I'm looking for is propeller 1 pitch increase. Yes, increase, not decrease. There it is, found it at last. I'm going to assign this to the propeller detent. So once again, we click in the box, move the prop lever into and out of detent. Now I'm looking for hold propeller reverse thrust, similar to what we did with the throttle. There it is, and once again I'm going to assign it to the propeller detent position, in and out. Joystick button 2. And finally we need something that will stop the prop lever jumping forward when it comes out of reverse. There's a new command here under the specific controls, which is propeller idle. In fact, there's 2. No idea what the difference is between them. I'm going to select one. Now again, I'm going to assign this to the detent, but as before on release. Because this is a specific control, as soon as I move it into the detent and back out again, it's going to prompt me for a new profile, and that profile will be under the specific 208B Grand Caravan controls. No problem, I'm going to give it the same name. I'm going to call it Single TurboProp. And we can now see that that profile is showing under the specific controls. Now that that's done, we mustn't forget it is on release, so we need to set that. Set control on release. All other actions allocated to that button are highlighted. I'm going to select toggle feather switch because we don't need that, and I'm going to delete it here. I've only deleted the toggle feather switch action, nothing else. We're done here. Don't forget to save and go back so the profile holds. We'll test our configuration in the Cessna Caravan, but before we do so, now that we've created a number of profiles, let's have a look at profile sharing in action. It's not perfect, but hopefully the accuracy will improve over a period of time. I've chosen the Cessna Station Air. Previous profile was the TurboProp, and in this case it's defaulted back to the Bravo Throttle Quadrant 2024. That's wrong, so I want to change that, so I'm going to select Set as Default for the single basic profile, and it should select that in future. Let's try another one. Let's select the Cessna 404 Titan. Never done a configuration for that aircraft. It's now loading, and let's see what it gives us, the twin prop. That's a little bit closer. Let's just do another one or two so you can see how the results vary. This time I'm going to select the King Air, another one of the default aircraft. There it is. I'll select that, save and go back. And let's see what profile it's going to give us. And it's come up with the twin prop. Arguably should have been the turbo, but we haven't set up a twin prop turbo yet. Now selected the Cessna 152, and it's selected correctly the single basic. As a work in progress, this holds a lot of potential. Let's now see how our config worked in the Cessna Caravan. First of all, we'll start off with the throttle and advance the throttle. That's working. Now we'll be able to test the reverse function just to make sure that it's working. Let's take off the parking brake. We should start to creep forward very slightly. We'll just change our view so we can see outside. Now into full reverse. And that should slow us down and then put us into reverse, which it's done. So that's all working fine, no problem. Let's get the parking brake on before I end up on my tail. Now we can check the prop lever, and we want to check the feather as well. Prop lever all the way down, and now into full feather. Well, the lever's moving. Strictly speaking, for the mixture, you would have changed it to condition lever. Turboprops have a condition lever and not a mixture, but the functionality is exactly the same. It is a little bit oversensitive. I have tried playing around with the extremity levels, but no luck there. And the engine cutoff does happen before you hit the detent. Well, if you're with me still, you now have enough information and know how to go and create a twin turboprop yourself. I do need to mention that a number of the functions are fairly buggy, and a fair amount of work needs to make this a little bit more effective and a little bit more predictable in terms of the actions that you assign. But nonetheless, I hope this has given you enough information to get you going and configuring your controllers. Yes, we've used the Bravo Throttle Quadrant, but the principles and assignments apply no matter what peripheral you're using. Making this type of video is not an easy task, so I'd appreciate a thumbs up if you found it useful. The jet config is in the works, as is a configuration for the Velocity 1 flight. But until next time, stay well, look after yourselves, see you soon, and ciao for now.